Shri Shrimada's Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shlahadadas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai, Brihat Madanga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 18, text number 6. Yasmin ahani yaryeva. Yasmin ahani yaryeva. Bhagavan utsa sarjagam. Bhagavan utsa sarjagam. Tadeve hanuvritosav. Tadaive hanuvritosav. Adharma prabhavakali. Adharma prabhavakali. Yasmin ahani yaryeva. Bhagavan utsa sarjagam. Tadaive hanuvritosav. Adharma prabhavakali. Vaishnavi. Yasmin, on that. Ahani, very day. Yarhi eva, in the very moment. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Utsasarja, left aside. Gam, the earth. Tada, at that time. Eva, certainly. Iha, in this world. Anuvrita, followed. Aso, he. Adharma, irreligion. Prabhava, accelerating. Kali, the personality of quarrel. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The very day and moment the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, left this earth, the personality of Kali, who promotes all kinds of irreligious activities, came into this world. Purport. The personality of Godhead and His holy name, qualities, etc. are all identical. The personality of Kali was not able to enter the jurisdiction of the earth due to the presence of the personality of Godhead. And similarly, if there is an arrangement for the constant chanting of the holy names, qualities, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no chance at all for the personality of Kali to enter. That is the technique of driving away the personality of Kali from the world. In modernized human society, there are great advancements of material science, and they have invented the radio to distribute sound in the air. So instead of vibrating some nuisance sound for sense enjoyment, if the state arranges to distribute transcendental sound by resounding the holy name, fame, and activities of the Lord, as they are authorized in the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, then a favorable condition will be created. The principles of religion in the world will be reestablished, and thus the executive heads, who are so anxious to drive away corruption from the world, will be successful. Nothing is bad if properly used for the service of the Lord. Om Ganatimananda Shajananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamrupagaramayam Dadati Swaparantikam. So, the translation here says, the very day and the moment the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, left this earth, the personality of Kali, who promotes all kinds of irreligious activities, came into this world. And in the word-for-word translation, the word prabhava, translates that as accelerating. So it's something like when the sun sets, it starts getting dark, and the longer this, after the sun sets, the darker it gets. So it's like that, prabhava. It's accelerating. It's not just that it came in and stayed at that level. It's the personality of Kali entered at that point, and his influence is becoming more and more prominent as time goes on. That's actually the general way things work. Since the beginning of the Satya Yuga, which was about 3,900,000 years ago, things have been going downhill. And but you could say up until that point, the sun is still in the sky, okay, just for analogy's sake. But when Krishna departed, that was like the sun setting, and then Kali entered. In the previous translation, though, the point was made that as long as the great, powerful son of Abhimanyu remained the emperor of the world, that's referring to Maharaj Pariksit, there was no chance that the personality of Kali would flourish. So personality of Kali entered when Lord Krishna departed, but he wasn't able to flourish until Maharaj Pariksit finished his activities, because he held them at bay, so to speak. But yeah, that's what's going on, that the influence of Kali is increasing as time goes on, just as it gets darker and darker after the sun sets. But Prabhupada here in the purport is giving the remedy to the situation. He points out that the holy name, qualities, etc., of Krishna are all identical with him, and that If there's an arrangement for constant chanting of the holy names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then there's no chance at all for the Personality of Kali to enter. And that's the technique. Of course, he's already entered. And in the next sentence, Prabhupada says, but that is the technique of driving away the Personality of Kali from the world. So, if there's an arrangement for the constant chanting, he can't enter. And even if he has entered, according to this next sentence, the technique for driving the Personality of Kali away is the same thing, that constant chanting. And Prabhupada goes on to point out that in modernized human society, there's great advancements, and he talks about the radio, media is there can distribute sound. And if the state were to arrange to distribute transcendental sound by resounding the holy name, fame, and activities of the Lord, then a favorable condition would be created. So that seems to me that's unlikely to happen worldwide. Of course, it could, but we shouldn't wait for it to happen. We could, at least within our own society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, we could take advantage of that, and we have been pretty nicely. I mean, there's all sorts of websites, ISKCON Desire Tree, LA Live, and etc. There's all sorts of ways that devotees are using modern technology to create an atmosphere, an environment, so that devotees can be constantly absorbed in hearing and chanting something Krishna conscious. So that's good, and that's so. In that sense, at least the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is following Prabhupada's suggestion here, and it remains to be seen whether the world, human society as a whole, will be able to, make that happen. But in any event, at least if we do, that's significant. And yeah, it's very significant because charity begins at home. Charity begins at home. We have to really follow these teachings that Prabhupada has given us seriously and experience how they're working in our whole life, in our own life, before we can really expect to, in any kind of effective way, give them to other people. And we have to first be satisfied customers, and then we'll be able to have some impact on other people's lives. So that's an important point. And it's serious business, because when you start engaging in devotional service, it's Prabhupada states in several places, even in purports in the Bhagavad Gita, it's like declaring war against the illusory energy. So when you go to war, the person you're fighting against, or the whatever your opponent, fights back. So that's what happens. Prabhupada, Maya is fighting back. Maya will do different things to allure the practitioner back, into the clutches, into material sense gratification, which means we're back fully in our clutches. So we have to be really serious and try to take seriously this instruction here about constant chanting of the holy names of the Lord. There's a nice song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur where he goes, Jeev Jago, Goda Chandra Bole, Kota Nidra Jaya Maya, Pisachira Kala, yeah. But the verse I'm really was wanting to quote was this one, Einachio Sodi Maya, Nasi Bado Lagi, Harinama Mahamantra Lao Tumi Magi, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaking, I think, as Lord Chaitanya, in the voice of Lord Chaitanya, says, I brought the medicine which will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you are suffering. And he's referring to the Mahamantra. So, that's an important thing to understand, that we are suffering from the disease of illusion. Just like yesterday we heard Prabhupada was lecturing, and he made that point about how Maya gives us a machine. He quoted that verse, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati. How's it go? Yeah, Yantarudhani Maya. That we're on a machine. So we've been given a machine by Maya, by the material energy, and so we're living in a machine. It's just like if you were put in one of these like suits that you wear when you go diving in the ocean. You're in an atmosphere where you don't belong, in a body, so to speak, that you don't belong. Both things are external to who we are as human beings. Whatever they call that suit, and the fact that you're deep down in the water. So in the same way, the spirit soul, we're not meant to be here. We're not meant to be in a material body in the material world. Prabhupada doesn't use this language, but we're living in a virtual reality. This is a virtual body, and we're living in a virtual world. The whole thing is, but we're very much absorbed in it. We're in the illusion that this is reality. This is a virtual reality, and but the experience is very powerful. It's almost like we're hardwired to be in the bodily concept of life. It's like I remember once Ratna Bhushan used to have a cat, and I can't remember how it all came about, but I was explaining to him that cats I've lived on farms, I've seen cats go after mice, and he said, no, but this cat, he wouldn't know what to do. I said, oh no, I bet you're wrong. He said, no, he's never seen a mouse, he wouldn't know what to do. And then shortly thereafter we're out in the park, right where we live, and his cat was out there, and the mouse went by, and sure enough, at first the cat was kind of bewildered, he just looked at the thing, but then it kicked in, because cat's hardwired, and then within about 30 seconds, his whatever's going on, brain, I guess, is kind of worked out what was going on. That's a mouse, and he went for it, and he acted like a cat. He did what a cat did when he sees a mouse. So it's like that. We're hardwired to be in the bodily concept of life, and it's to get out of it requires a real serious effort on our part. Just like one of the first classes I heard when I joined, the person who was giving the class gave the example of engaging in devotional services like swimming upstream. And if those of you who have been to Mayapur and attempted to swim in the Ganges, you could relate to that analogy, because the Ganges generally always has a current. It's not like a lake where it's sort of still. It always has a current. So as soon as you jump in, if you don't decide to swim upstream, then guess what? You're going downstream. It's like that. So it's the same thing. In Krishna consciousness, the same thing. And especially when you make that bid, you throw your hat in the ring, and you're making a bid to become a pure devotee, then Maya goes, oh, okay, all right, let's see what you got. And she starts throwing all sorts of tests in your way. And you got to be really serious. You have to be really serious to swim upstream, to resist those different temptations, etc. Otherwise, you get swept away by the current, swept away. So, so we have to be serious. Prabhupada here in Los Angeles, he gave actually right upstairs in his room, there was this one time when Vishnu John Swami was presenting to him about how he was raising the doubt, how is it going to be possible for somebody whose consciousness is absorbed in material affairs to think of Krishna and be Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada used that question as an opportunity to emphasize the potency of the chanting. He made the point that let him go ahead and continue to think of those, be absorbed in material affairs, but at the same time chanting. And then if the person continues on with the chanting will emerge victorious. So we have to have that faith and conviction that the chanting is what will save us. The chanting is what will enable us to emerge victorious ultimately in the this war against the illusory energy. right? We're declaring war against the illusory energy. And in the process, while that's happening, the desires for the attraction to the material energy, the desires for sense gratification are still there, but stated second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when he's talking about how a person who's transcendently situated experience things. I'll read it, a couple sentences to you. Although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during the rainy season, being filled with much more water. But the ocean remains the same, steady. It is not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limit of its brinks. This is also true of a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. This is the sentence I was thinking about. As long as one has the material body, the demands of the body for sense gratification will continue. See? So in other words, if you're experiencing that, if you're finding that, well, desires, demands of the body for sense gratification are continuing, don't get discouraged. That's par for the course, according to this, as Prabhupada's saying. As long as one has the material body, that's what's, we're going to experience. The demands of the body for sense gratification are going to continue. But Prabhupada goes on to say that the devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his fullness. A Krishna-conscious man is not in need of anything because the Lord fulfills all his material necessities. Therefore, he's like the ocean, always full in himself. The desires may come to him like waters of the rivers that flow into the ocean, but he is steady in his activities, and he's not even slightly disturbed by the desire for sense gratification. That is the proof of a Krishna-conscious man. One who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification, although the desires are present. Now that might sound like a contradiction, but it's not, because the consciousness is a very complex thing. No, it's possible that the desires are present, but you've lost all the inclinations to satisfy them. So I can think of an analogy, but hopefully everybody's experienced this, that when you have a higher taste, it's not like the desires sometimes can still be there. But because you're experiencing that higher taste, and you know the philosophy, then you're able to resist that attraction. You don't feel you lost the inclination. The combination of the fact that using your intelligence from what you've learned from the philosophy, and the fact that you're experiencing that higher taste, you don't have the inclination to try to gratify the senses, fulfill those desires. Just on another note about how serious we have to be, that we could see how historically speaking, Krishna consciousness is no joke. In the 50-year history of the Krishna conscious movement, we've had so many devotees who have come and gone. We have leaders fallen down, and I don't know if there's anybody who can even give account of how many devotees have come and attempted to be devotees, and for one reason or another, whatever, they haven't been able to really keep to the standard, and they've gone off. So we can understand from that how difficult it is. I mean, what's the explanation? Is it that Krishna's consciousness is not the absolute truth? No, that's not an acceptable explanation. What other explanation can there be? Well, another one is that it's not a cheap thing. It's a very difficult thing, in one sense, to become a fixed up devotee. And we're not exactly, when I say we, I'm referring to the human beings of this day and age in Kali Yuga, are not exactly the most qualified candidates for devotional service. Generally speaking, in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says Yesham tvantakatam papam ginanam punyakarmanam tedvanva mohanir mukta bhajante mam judavrata. That only one who has acted piously in this life and in previous lifetimes, and whose sinful activities are completely eradicated, can engage in devotional service with firm determination. So that's the general standard for somebody who's eligible to engage in devotional service. And practically in Kali Yuga, nobody's, to that standard. Nobody's engaged in pious activities in this life and in previous lives. Their sinful activities are completely eradicated. So according to that criterion, we're all disqualified, ineligible and disqualified. But that was brought once the devotee, it was an interesting pastime where a devotee brought that, was wondering about that, and devotees were on a walk with Prabhupada, and a devotee in the course of the conversation started to quote that verse in an attempt to ask Prabhupada the question. Prabhupada, it says in the Bhagavad Gita, and he was quoting that verse and he was trying to ask the question, does that mean that all, those of us who have accepted you as our, spiritual master and are now engaging in devotional service, that means that we've done that we've engaged in pious activities in this life and in previous lives? And Prabhupada didn't cut him off. He couldn't even finish. And Prabhupada said, I have created your pious activities. So, in other words, we're mercy cases for the most part. In other words, we don't have that qualification of having necessarily, there might be a few people within ISKCON who fit that description, but maybe it seems like for the vast majority we haven't engaged in pious activities in this life and in previous lives. Our sinful activities are not completely eradicated, but it's only by Prabhupada's mercy that we're here. We receive the mercy of a pure devotee. So, to keep the mercy of the pure devotee, we have to be very, try to very faithfully stick to the teachings. Just like in the Ramayana, there's that pastime where, I might have mentioned this in the previous class, I can't remember, but where, they're in the forest, Lord Ramachandra, Lakshman and Sita were in the forest, and Ravana was trying to devise some sort of a plan to kidnap Sita, so he employed Maricha, who was a Rakshasa, and he had the ability to change forms and etc. So he wanted him to transform himself into the form of a golden deer, so he could and then go and attract the attention of Sita and lure Ramachandra away, from the camp, because Sita would want that golden deer. And anyway, so what happened was he did that, and Lord Ramachandra, Sita fell for it. She thought, Lord Ramachandra sensed that something's up here, but Sita insisted she wanted the golden deer. So Lord Ramachandra went out chasing, trying to get the golden deer, and then shortly thereafter they hear some cries from the forest, Lakshman, Sita, help, save me, something like that. So Lakshman, he also wasn't fooled. He also kind of could smell a rat, so to speak. Something's up here. And but Sita was fooled, and she actually insisted that Lakshman go and try to help Ram. And he didn't want to, but then she kind of said, well, you're just, I can understand because, I can understand from your behavior that you just want to enjoy me, and you're just waiting for the opportunity, and so he couldn't. When she said that, he had to do something. So he said, okay, I'll go try to help Ram. But so here's what I'm going to do. He made a circle, and he told her, stay within this circle, and you're protected. But if you go outside that circle, then you're vulnerable. So he did that, and he went off, and then Ravana came, and she he tricked her to go outside the circle, and he was able to kidnap her. So, but in the same way, if Prabhupada's given us a circle, so to speak, his teachings, the instructions, and if we stay within that circle, we're safe. We're not prey for the age of Kali and Maya to pick us off. But once we go outside that protective circle, which are the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, we're fair game for Kali, the personality of Kali and Maya. So we have to be very careful to stay within that circle there, and then we're protected. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And you recite that verse that says that even if one's chanting for millions of births, if he's committing these offenses, he won't attain love of God, which is the ultimate goal of chanting. So how do we understand both of those? If one's thinking of material desires, but he's still chanting, that means he's committing offenses to the holy name. But then Prabhupada said if he just keeps chanting, the chanting will emerge victorious.
Yeah, I think it's a progression that, initially in the lower levels, somebody should be encouraged to chant no matter what, even if they feel like there's no possible way I could get free from these material desires. Okay, that's okay. Just keep the material desires, but start chanting and continue chanting. But then as the person starts to make some progress, then it should be emphasized more and more that, it really be a good idea for you to try to simultaneously keep chanting, but simultaneously try to become free from some of these desires. And so I think it's like a progression like that. As you get more and more serious about reaching the goal, so to speak, then you got to be more and more concerned about weeding out those desires and, becoming free from different material attachments. Archie does.
Nanda Kirtan always asks these questions that he knows the answer to. That's where the Yasyahama Nugaranami verse comes in. Krishna personally says, if somebody's foolish enough to want me and at the same time retains material desires, Yasyahama Nugaranami, Tadadam Shanai. I will take away all his material situations. That's where Chaitanya Guru Krishna comes in. Yes, you're chanting Hare Krishna, but you want to do this and do that, and some of which even may be against the principles. Krishna's not going to let you go so easily once you start. Prabhupada said one time that Krishna will drag you back to God kicking and screaming. So Krishna says in that verse, I will take away his material situation so much so that all his friends, family members will reject him, and then he has no other place to go, but no other shelter but me. So that's what happens. If you bring that determination to keep chanting in all circumstances, then Krishna will take care of the rest. He will kick away that so-called significant other. He will take away that job away that that's going to be bad for you. He will just keep taking away until you just surrender.
Yeah, Savaspa.
Thank you for a very thoughtful class. When you were speaking, especially this latter part here, it just reminded me, I was listening to this lecture the other day again from Srila Prabhupada, and he said that there's a formula for get rid of our anarthas and to increase our faith. And Prabhupada said, it was a very simple formula, I just really love it. He said in the beginning, we should have appreciation for Krishna consciousness. So we should continue with that appreciation process. Appreciate what we receive from the pure devotees, the parampara. Appreciate all the different things, prasadam, ghee, milk. So I was just appreciating these things myself. And then from that appreciation, you develop an attachment or desire to be with devotees. If we really are with devotees and want to be with devotees, we'll really become Krishna conscious. If we try to avoid devotees, in other words, if we try to avoid association, be secluded somewhere, and not interact and be with devotees and in the function of a temple atmosphere, kirtan, worshiping the deity, taking prasad together, just all those things that you do with the devotees, sadhu sangha. And then from that, we all develop intense desire to do bhajana kriya, to serve and do the most menial servant. In other words, no matter what we're asked to do, we do it because we know it's bhajana kriya. It's service to Krishna. And we do it because we do it with devotees. We do it together as a team, as a concerted effort to please Krishna. Bhajana kriya. And then from that, anartha nivritti, automatically. We don't even have to focus on it. Just by being conscientious with devotees, wanting to be with devotees, serving with devotees, boom, anartha nivritti goes away. If you're with devotees, you're not going to think about going to a movie. If you're associating too much with non-devotees, you'll want to go to a movie or to a restaurant or to some mundane activity. You'll want to, because that's what it is. But if you're with a devotee, why are you going to walk up to a devotee and say, Prabhu, let's go to the movies? I mean, like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? You can't do that. You don't even think about it. And then when you don't do that, then you have anartha nivritti. You get rid of anartha. And then your shraddha, your faith becomes solid. You become a real devotee. And this is what you want to do with your life. So, all these taking things and isolating them, well, let me take care of this. No, the process is there. If we follow the process and just do it with sincere faith and humility, Krishna will get rid of all those things within the heart.
Thank you. Vaininath Prabhu.
This question is regarding about the Savas Prabhu mentioning about the association. So when we associate with the devotees, when we talk about others, that means the devotee is not following the instructions.
Run it by me again.
And Savas Prabhu mentioning about the association, when we are close to the devotees, we don't think anything. So that means that when we are talking to devotee, when we find fault about others or talk about bad or criticize, that means the devotee or myself, we are not following the instruction that Prabhupada gave to us, or we are not chanting properly or reading.
Well, there's a difference between fault finding and corrective criticism. I mean, it all depends how you do it, I think. If you're just gossiping and just talking about, oh, this person did this. But sometimes things happen, things come up and, you might be aware of some legitimate fault in that, in somebody's character and somebody's activities. And I don't think it's wrong to kind of discuss that with somebody else. Probably best just to directly talk to that person about it, but that might not be possible. You might not be comfortable to do that. So I don't think there's anything wrong to, talk about an appropriate person in an appropriate way about that. But you have to be very careful because, we're, to a certain degree, some of us are conditioned souls, and the propensity to fault find and maliciously gossip and, say things about other people, bad thing, it's there as part of our nature. So we have to be on guard against that, that we're not just allowing ourselves to indulge in malicious kind of gossip, which won't help us, won't help the person who's hearing it, won't help the person who it's directed, like that. But at the same time, legitimate corrective criticism is, I think that's there. So you got to try to be in good Krishna conscious, use your intelligence, and be careful. Does that help at all? Does that make any sense? All right. That's it. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.